welcome to Analytics Cafe. This is Priyanka from Mering, and today we're going to talk about driving impact using data science in healthcare. Today I have with me Venkatesh Ravirala, Senior Director of Advanced Research Analytics with UnitedHealth Group. Welcome, Venki.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity here.
That's great. And just let's start with you giving us some of your background.
Sure. I have been in the analytics space for almost 30 years now, worked across 6 or 7 different industries. For the last 6 or 8 years, much more in the healthcare domain. Currently, I am a senior director at UnitedHealth Group, which you know is very much focused on across the board healthcare delivery. Certainly, my focus is on the insurance side of the business.
That's great.
So my experience typically tended to be building the data science centers of excellence from ground up and being able to put those data analytics for business impact, essentially operationalizing inside big organizations.
That's great. This is such an opportunity. So, Gartner's 2017 report reported that roughly 85% of data science initiatives actually goes to waste. And I've seen some reports out there which is even painting a more bleak picture of maybe 2% of data science initiatives actually drive any meaningful impact. What have you seen from your? I know you're across the industry, but specifically to healthcare, what have you seen?
Maybe that's a little too aggressive a statement to make because data science in general is broad. But I agree that when it comes down to return on investment, majority of the C-level executives would come back and say no more than 15-20% of the data science efforts are successful or giving business fruition, so to speak. Yeah. But it also varies very significantly depending upon the maturity of the organization. Right. I have been fortunate in being able to work in organizations that are much more mature, and I've had pretty talented team.
That's great.
I will boast and say that my track record has been much better than that.
That's great. So you are the best person for us to talk and ask about when there's always a failure, percentages may vary. What do you think are the top reasons for failure? Specific to healthcare, where are the failures in data science?
Yeah, healthcare certainly is a laggard in adopting data science and in general doing advanced research and with analytics, right? So AI, ML has really taken off in the last 10 years or so in other industries, but the healthcare continues to be a laggard. Having said that, though, it does give healthcare an advantage because there are very many aspects that are now problems that we can tackle with smartness, so to speak, right? Deploy the latest and the greatest, and make the biggest of the impact. Yeah. So in general, the biggest problems I would say is just like in other industries, the current state is about 80% of our effort really goes into data wrangling, data munging, data cleansing operations. So much more data as opposed to science. Yeah. And only 20% goes into our investigation, modeling, and consulting efforts. I would love to invert those numbers and to get much more efficient with data operations so that we can spend the majority of our time in the analytic process and consulting efforts to drive the business impact.
That's great. So you're saying that's the number one reason that people are spending way too much time actually getting a single source of good data, access to good data versus, doing anything on top of that.
Correct. Second thing I would highlight is that I've seen teams rush into data analysis without really gaining enough domain knowledge, essentially thinking that the insights are in the data, so to speak. And as long as you can put an operational process, somehow you generate insights and drive action from it. But from my experience, I would say that is really not the reality. Data science has a lot of design and critical thought behind it in its application and truly being able to solve the business problem. Majority of the time, we truly have to iterate. And learn on the job and be able to improvise as we generate better and better models before we go over and above the state of practice, which typically tends to be already optimized in the business. So when it comes down to business impact, not pedagogical, right? Business impact, we come as laggards, but then eventually deliver better than the operations, so to speak.
That's great. That's great. And then in your experience, given your success track, what do you believe are the top things that help organizations overcome these hurdles?
So generally speaking, failure happens wherever the weakest link is. Data science, in my opinion, is a delivery of a value chain.
Right.
Whether so you have a starting point of data acquisition and ingestion, but at the end, you're really going and driving the operational prescriptive processes that we've put together. So every organization has to think about how to overcome the challenges that we have already discussed. And then my recommendation to organizations at different stages of maturity is don't hesitate to invest in integrating and curating the data and not fall for the trap of people talk about schema-less or schema-on-read type of systems where they literally dump everything into a data lake. It's really more a data dump than a well-designed lake. Instead, I would recommend they invest in effective data modeling and schema designs and metadata so that they give that faster learning and appreciation of the business through the data for the data scientists, right? More analytical scientists, not just the engineering type of scientists, so to speak. Right. And I would not hesitate investing as much in talented IT that supports the statisticians and the advanced PhDs that we recruit for data science.
Yeah.
Also, I would say that we do need to bring in data scientists who are well-rounded with good communication skills and customer engagement skills, so that we understand and reiterate the problem before we try to solve it with different methods, so to speak, but then also go back and explain how we solved it and how we validated and delivered a more effective solution than whatever their default would have been, the seat of the pants approach they could be implementing otherwise, so to speak. All right.
Totally. This is very much Venki, in line with my recent keynote at C-Event, where I was talking to hospitality executives on where they are seeing the barriers to getting value from the data. And we define it as the 4 Ds. The first one for barriers to data culture is data maturity, which is where you need to have single source of good data. Agreed. And how do you enable that? Data architecture, well thought out data architecture is one part of it. Easy access with a maneuverable tool is another part of it, and so on. The second part is data literacy, which is both on the business side as well as on the data scientist side. The ability to bridge the gap between data and business, is data literacy, and it's varying degree of data literacy, and it's sort of is where another big hole or big barrier is for an organization to start leveraging data culture. So it's very much in line with what I learned at that event as well, that data maturity and data literacy are happening to be 2 big barriers. Of course, the data-driven leadership needs to be up to speed, and needs to be a decision-making process, which is the 4th D.
True.
And I'm glad that that's lining up. So any last tip for our folks here in healthcare and healthcare insurance? Is there value from data?
So healthcare, as I said, continues to be a laggard. First thing I would say is don't be so afraid of the cloud. Top cloud vendors really have very secure protocols and protection. The faster we embrace the scale and cost-effective solutions in the data space and infrastructure space, will give custom fit solutions or tools, I should say, across the board, from ETL to querying to visualization to search and algorithmic compute, right?
Totally.
Enable and make the organization capable to deliver better data science solutions. And the top leadership should continue to persevere and champion and nurture with unwavering support. It is not about getting in and getting out and looking for short-term. Right. Think both short-term and long-term. It's not just one way or the other. Last but not least is that we need to have a balance of portfolio of projects that focus not just on simple projects, but some complex R&D and innovation projects as well, which there's no guarantee of success. Yeah. To accept that and drive the top talent along with some of the second-tier talent you definitely need to do typical analysis that we are all familiar with.
That's great. That's really wonderful tip for our listeners and viewers here. So thank you so much, Venki, for coming on to Analytics Cafe, and I look forward to continuing our conversation.
Thank you very much, Priyanka. It's nice getting back in touch with you and look forward to connecting again.
Okay. Bye-bye. Yeah.